Hello, my name is Sue Sweetek. I'm the owner of Hubba Hubba Foods in York, Maine. Today we are going to be making mini Bubbacue meatloaves. And we're going to be following this recipe. If you've met me before, you are familiar with these recipe cards. You receive one with every jar of spices you purchase. So we're going to get started. So first, we're starting with milk. This can be, it's 3/4 cup of milk. It could be whole milk. It could be low-fat milk. Totally up to you, whatever you like. And we're going to add the surprise ingredient, which is old-fashioned oats. This is 1/2 cup. And the reason I'm doing this is because traditionally meatloaf has bread in it, and that prevents it from being too dense. But I do have gluten-free friends and family, and I decided to come up with a way for everybody to be able to eat the same meal. And so I discovered that oats works perfectly well as a substitute for bread. The next thing that we are going to add is Hubba Bubbacue. This is our Southern style barbecue seasoning. We're adding a teaspoon of it to our mixture. And that's going to make another appearance later on, and we'll talk about that then. We're going to give this another mix, and then we are going to add 1 egg. This is our binder. It's going to prevent our meatloaves from falling apart. And we're going to give that a quick beat right there in with the milk and the oats. Get that all combined. Okay, we're going to set that aside. And what's going to happen is while we're working on the rest of the meatloaf, those oats are going to be absorbing all that milk, and it's going to make a wonderful tender meatloaf. Okay, our next ingredient is onions. I've done it in advance so that we could save ourselves a little time here today, but this is 1 large onion. I've finely diced it. I sauteed it in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. You can use whatever you have, and a large pinch of salt. And that salt draws the liquid out of the onions, and it makes it so they saute and get translucent instead of browning. So I did this on a nice low heat, and they're completely translucent, and they're gonna be nice and soft in our meatloaf. If we put raw onions in the meatloaf, because it's going to be cooking for a very short time because they are mini meatloaves, they'd be crunchy and raw still. They don't have enough time to cook in the oven to get completely soft. So we are going to add them to our meat mixture, cooked, and they're cooled slightly. Okay, give that a stir. So our meatloaf mixture has everything in it but the meat. So let's talk about that. What I have here is 1 pound of ground beef. I'm using 93% lean. You can use whatever you like. You can use ground turkey, ground chicken. You can use ground pork. You can use meatloaf mix. Any ratio of fat to lean that you like. So you may have noticed by now that I am using a fork to mix my meatloaf. And that is because it's my favorite way to mix meatloaf. I used to mix it with my hands in plastic food service gloves. And I found that sometimes it can make the meatloaf a little tough. So what I've discovered is that by using a fork, it breaks up the ground beef or whatever kind of ground meat you're using. And it helps it so that it's completely incorporated without making the meat tough. And as you can see, in almost no time at all, our meatloaf mixture is completely combined beautifully. Okay, on to the next step. We are going to dish out this meatloaf into a muffin tin. That's how we wind up with mini meatloaves. And the reason I did this is because it's nice to take the leftovers and put them in a freezer bag and have a meal for another day. And the other reason is I am extremely partial to the end of a meatloaf. I like all the caramelized edges. And this way, with a muffin tin, everybody gets the nice caramelized edges. Nobody gets the pieces in the middle. So what I'm doing is portioning this out into 12 cups, like so. Almost done. Now, you may have noticed that I did not grease this pan and I did not spray it with nonstick spray. You need to decide if your pan is nonstick enough or not. I happen to know I've used this pan many times and I know for sure that it will not stick. But if you are not sure about that with yours, then you can definitely spray it first with nonstick spray, because that would be terrible if you could not get these out of the pan once they're cooked. So the last step before the glaze, the yummy part, is just to give it a pat in place with the back of your scoop. There we go. So now we have 12 mini meatloaves, and on to the topping. What we have here is 2/3 of a cup of ketchup, and I am going to add to that a 1.5 teaspoons of mustard. Now right now I'm using Dijon. I have one in the oven right now that I used brown mustard for. You can use yellow mustard. If you have some kind of fancy gourmet mustard in your fridge, use that. Whatever you have is fine. Mustard in this application is mustard. Okay, and now we're gonna add even more flavor. We are adding more of our Hubba Bubbacue. So what Hubba Bubbacue is bringing to the party is some chipotle pepper. That's a smoked jalapeno. It's a mild smoky heat. We've got salt and pepper in there, onion, garlic, and even a little bit of allspice. So we've got lots of different flavors in there, and it's really going to enhance our glaze. So I've got our glaze all mixed up. Okay, no streaks of mustard left. And now we are going to put it on top of each little mini meatloaf. And in the meantime, I have preheated the oven to 350 degrees. And I personally like to put the meatloaf on the bottom rack because we get a nice caramelization even on the bottom of these little mini meatloaves that way. You can do whatever you like. And in the meantime, while it's cooking, your glaze is going to caramelize as well. So I'm just gonna spread this out just a little bit on top of each one. Everyone gets that nice ketchup glaze that we all love on meatloaf. Oh, look at that, wonderful. I can see all the black pepper from our rub. So I'm gonna pop this in my 350-degree oven. Oh, I can hear the meatloaf sizzling in here. We've got one already done. And as you can see, our glaze caramelized. Oh my goodness, it's sizzling. Here we go, it pops right out. And you can take all those leftovers and put them in a freezer bag. But I am going to have a taste. Oh, it's so tender, you barely need to press down on that to take a bite. Even the allspice comes through. There's a teeny tiny little bit of heat from the chipotle pepper. The onions are nice and tender. I hope you tried this recipe. I've posted a link to it in the comments. Give it a try. Enjoy.